Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Three kinds of lies, damn lies, and statistics. That was actually Benjamin Disraeli, I believe, who said that. It's often attributed to Mark Twain, which reminds me of Ambrose Bierce's definition of a quotation, which is the act of repeating erroneously the words of another. I like it. That's why this book caught my eye, this new book out. The Data Detective, 10 Easy Rules to Make Sense of Statistics. And obviously because science and data is the word that is repeated like a magical incantation by policymakers and public health professionals in the context of COVID, but also just everything. Everything in life is data-driven. Everything in business is data-driven. We need to be data-centric and so forth. Data.
You sound so smart if you know the science and the data.
Statistics. And so, of course, we have a problem in that most people are not particularly conversant in statistics, at least ones that have sort of the foundational grounding that makes them relevant, the context. And there are all sorts of fallacies that abound in when people discuss data and stats to inform their understanding of a particular challenge or a particular topic or a particular policy proposal. So to help us get better with stats, we're pleased to be joined by the author of the aforesaid book, Tim Harford. He's an award-winning columnist, broadcaster, and economist, best-selling author of The Undercover Economist and, as I mentioned, The Data Detective, 10 Easy Rules to Make Sense of Statistics, which was released just yesterday. Tim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So give us some easy rules that people can apply to being better or demanding that their friends and family members get better when discussing stats to try to make an argument or support a particular policy.
Oh, Dan, let's not get on to the question of how we can get our friends and family members to be smarter about statistics. I just want to fix myself. I'm not going to help you fix anybody else.
All right.
So, I mean, the rule that I think people find most surprising is nothing to do with calculators or spreadsheets. I just encourage people to notice their own emotional reaction to a claim, because so often statistics aren't used to show us the world. They're used to try to win an argument. And I think if you see a claim on social media, you hear something on the radio, and you immediately think, oh, that can't be true, that's fake news, or you think, oh, this proves I was right all along. Whatever that emotional reaction is, it's immediately making you stupider. And if we could just take 2 seconds to notice that knee-jerk reaction, we would immediately, I think, start to think more clearly about what's actually being put in front of us, the evidence.
So take the emotions out of it, which is difficult for some people.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult for us all. We're all human. And of course, it's fine to feel emotions. I mean, if something outrageous is happening, it's okay to be outraged. But I think we need to at least notice that, because if we're just hitting retweet or like or share on Facebook or Twitter, we're immediately responding to a claim, we're not our best selves. Like, we're not thinking as clearly as we could do. So just notice that.
Oh, one of the other things that you point to is publication bias, and I want to amplify that a bit because this in part explains why people have distorted senses of the particular presence of something in society. For example, there was a survey a few months ago. What do you think the case fatality rate, the infection fatality rate for COVID is? And the median response came back to be about 10% of the population, when in point of fact, at that time, I think it was still under, I think the case fatality rate was something like 0.5% or something like that. So to be off by a factor of 20x is a problem, and it speaks to how you're receiving information and the assumptions you're making about the information you're receiving.
You're absolutely right. So there's everything that we see on social media, on the media, even in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, if that's the kind of thing you like to read, it's been through a particular filter. And a lot of that filter is about what's interesting, what's surprising. So we're more likely to see a report of, say, a 25-year-old dying of COVID than we are of an 85-year-old dying of COVID, even though when you look at the statistics, 85-year-olds are way, 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 like 1,000 times, 2,000, 3,000 times more vulnerable than the young, because it's a surprise that a 25-year-old died of COVID. That is the story that we'll see, and that is true for any kind of media, and that is true for any kind of fact. If it's not surprising, then why would anybody bother to tell us? So we really need to be on the lookout for that.
And the other thing, and this I see this in politics all the time. And when I was a political consultant, I would always tell candidates, do not over extrapolate from the anecdotal. You're going to come back and you're going to tell me that I went to this event, I spoke to 100 people, everybody loved me, this is going so well. And you're taking that 100 people and you're spreading around the reaction you got in that room in your presence to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who you're not going to meet, who you're not going to have that opportunity to who won't have that one-on-one opportunity, whose feedback you haven't gotten yet. We say, well, it went so well at that event. It's going so well at these events. It must be, a wildfire spreading throughout the particular district. And, it often turns out not to be the case because you're using your experience to make wild generalizations.
Yeah, it's not only the people that you've met and you've seen their reaction. Not only is that a small percentage of all the people in the area, but it's also they're not the same as all the other people because they're the ones who decided to come to your event. Right. And they're the ones who've had the chance to see your amazing political rhetoric. So it's so easy to fool ourselves. One of the challenges that I describe in the book is the challenge of combining that statistical perspective with your personal experience, because personal experience is, it's not to be dismissed. When you go and you meet the vote as a politician, you go and meet the voters, you do learn stuff. You're going to get much more information, much more detailed information than you'd get from looking at a graph about polling. But the polling data is more representative. So it's not an easy task to combine the two, but that's where the real wisdom comes, the statistics plus the personal, put them together, and you might start to actually make the world make sense.
And although it would help to have some basic math skills too. So when some study comes out that says people who ate this or drank that have a 42% higher risk of developing prostate cancer. They say, well, okay, 42% more than what? So go back to give me the original data set, and you're saying that the chance of developing prostate cancer for this particular cohort is 1%, and the people who ate this or drank that have a 42% more likelihood of developing prostate cancer starting off that baseline. So you went from 1% chance to 1.42% chance. You don't have a 42% chance of getting prostate cancer, but people don't process that. A lot of people don't process it that way.
It's a shame because a good journalist or a good communicator would actually express that in a different way. They'd say, look, of 1,000 people, 10 got prostate cancer, but out of 1,000 people who drank coffee or whatever it is, they got prostate cancer. I mean, these are not the real numbers, but right. That sort of presentation, if anybody can understand that, it's not even a super complex piece of math to change one into another. But I just think we don't instinctively do that. Journalists aren't trained to communicate like that. And we as consumers of the news won't necessarily think things that way. But it's not, this is not super hard stuff.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
It's just high school math.
But you're right. The reporting and the way we talk about it doesn't provide any context or consequence. So it's just numbers being thrown around. Then people start to dismiss everything, as you were sort of implying, everything that runs counter to their understanding of a particular event or dynamic. And rather than digging deeper to be able to respond to what they're hearing and be able to, first understand what's actually going on and then respond to the erroneous things they're hearing.
Yeah, context is the word you used. It's so important. In fact, I sometimes use the 3 C's. So calm, as we discussed, just keep your cool. Then context, just where does this piece of information fit in? Can I compare it to something else to help me make sense of it? And then the final thing is curiosity. Rather than just saying, hey, this headline proves I was right, or this headline is something I'm going to use as a weapon in an argument, to say, this headline's interesting. I want to find out more. I want to dig a little bit deeper, a couple of extra Google searches, read to the second paragraph. Calm, context, curiosity. It's not about the spreadsheets. It's not about advanced math. Those simple questions are really going to help you make sense of the information that is presented to you on a daily basis.
And another way to talk about context, too, it's sort of the handle I think you use. It's just like, get the backstory. Like, you read a story, something occurred, or people are arguing this. Well, what's the backstory on that? Where does this come from? You trace it back a little bit, and it probably would open up your understanding of what's happening.
Yeah, so often we treat these numbers as though they just kind of descended from some big spreadsheet in the sky and just kind of landed in the middle of a news bulletin or on the front page of a newspaper or on our Facebook feed. And we don't say, well, hang on, where did that come from? And I don't mean that in a really suspicious way, like, that must be some propaganda. But just like, that's interesting. Where did the number come from? I wonder how they discovered that. I'd like to know a little bit more. Just show an interest. The world's a really interesting place. And when you start viewing it like that, the whole process of consuming information just becomes more rewarding and I think just a little bit less stressful.
Yeah, well, the problem is members of the media benefit from crisis. So if they see something that could be a headline to scare people, they're going to grab it. And they don't care about attribution.
I think that's true. And also, even when things are going well, they tend to go well slowly and they tend to go bad quickly. So there's always a systematic bias in like a daily news show. It's always about the stuff that's gone wrong. And if you actually took a step back, I talk about this in the book, if you think about like what the news might look like if the newspapers came out only every 25 years, you might go, actually, the last 25 years, maybe not so bad. I mean, some bad times, but some good times as well. But day by day, it's very hard for anything really nice to happen. It's very easy for something bad to happen.
Tim Harford, award-winning columnist, broadcaster, and economist, international best-selling author of The Undercover Economist. Most recently, what we've been discussing, The Data Detective, 10 Easy Rules to Make Sense of Statistics, which is now available. So pick it up. Tim, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Oh, thanks so much. My pleasure.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Smoke fumes and dust are a nuisance your business can do without, causing health hazards for employees and possible EPA problems for your company. If you need help cleaning up these problems, call a company that has the expertise and capability to help.
Hi, I'm Dave Van Camp, president of Vans Industrial. I've got 43 years of personal experience in dealing with smoke fumes and dust emissions, and I can help you eliminate these problems from your plant. Contact Vans for a no-cost evaluation of your system, and we will size equipment, design hoods and ductwork for a complete turnkey solution.
Vans uses only the best and safest union-trained mechanics insured at the highest levels to perform the job right. Call 833-VANS-IND to schedule your ventilation inspection today. That's 833-VANS-IND. Visit vansindustrial.com on the web. That's VANSindustrial.com. Vans Industrial, working safe since